Oggi abbiamo un episodio molto speciale che si terrà tutto in inglese. Abbiamo un ospite speciale, Sander Stage. Abbiamo un altro ospite speciale in realtà, Lorenzo Staffini, che farà il podcast insieme a noi. So let's start. Hello Sander, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
What a nice Italian intro. As we just spoke about quickly, parlo un po' di italiano per voi che siete italiani, ma preferisco parlare in inglese. Quindi facciamo così.
Thank you.
The right pronunciation is Sander or Sander?
Sander.
Sander, okay.
Sander.
So we'll mispronounce your name every time so that we can do that on purpose.
Okay, no worries.
E grazie anche a Lorenzo che è qui con noi oggi.
My pleasure.
Okay. So for people who don't know who you are, a quick presentation, introduction.
Quick introduction. Does it matter which camera I look at or I look at you guys?
It's the same. If you want to look at the camera, is
Actually,
that one?
you know
That's
what?
the wide angle, and that is the close-up.
Right, okay.
But
I
you
just
can
wanted
also
to know.
like talk
Perfect.
to us.
I'll have the conversation with you guys. So,
Yeah.
for those of you who are new here or who don't know me yet, my name is Sander Stage. I am a 21-year-old entrepreneur, as we call it in the space, online business owner. I've been in this space now for 4 or 5 years, the social media marketing agency space in particular. And around 3 years ago, I started an educational program in social media marketing. Mm-hmm. Today, we have around 1,600 students on a global scale. So that's been a really interesting journey. As you noticed, I speak just a little bit of Italian. I understand most. I've been living in Milan, Italy now for around 18 months, so for a year and a half. But have gotten a good hang of the language. But originally, I'm from Copenhagen, Denmark, which is where I grew up, so Scandinavia.
Okay. Are you liking Milan?
I'm loving Milan, I have to say. Don't get me started.
When did you move there?
Don't get me started because I'll speak for an hour on why I love Italy so much. But honestly, it's just my favorite country. I love the culture. I love the people here, the open-heartedness, how hospitable people are. And it's funny, sometimes when I say that to Italian people, they don't understand me because they've experienced maybe a different side of the Italian culture where people can be a little bit more jealous or closed. But I would say for the people that I've met where I live in Milan, I've gotten really lucky with the society I've gotten into. And so people are just so friendly. And except for that, I really love the passion that I find Italian people have in general. It doesn't matter if you're talking to a person cleaning the streets or a person making coffee in a bar or somebody working in a factory or an entrepreneur. I feel like most people in Italy really take pride in their jobs and really go all into it and want to do it well. And are passionate about their craft, and that's something I really, really love here in Italy.
Yeah, I agree. So why did you choose Italy? Like apart from the culture, like in general, have you moved everything, like also like your agency and everything to Italy, or do you keep working abroad?
So I wanted to move away from Copenhagen. I was a little bit fed up with the Scandinavian culture. I felt it was very closed and maybe small-minded in some sense, even though Scandinavia politically is a place where the system is working really, really well.
A lot.
There's close to zero corruption. I would even go as far as say zero corruption, which is not something we see, for example, in Italy, where it's a little bit more un casino.
Yes.
Of course.
But I love that. It gives more wiggle room. It's less strict. And I just feel like the fact that everyone at home in Denmark just obeys the rules so blindly.
Do you think that had a positive impact on your business and your day-by-day life?
No, because I was always more like the Italians. So for me, it was very hard to fit in Denmark. I actually feel much more at home here. So it was a natural move. I wanted to get away from my home country. My mother is half Italian. So I visited Florence like 5, 6, 7 times throughout my childhood.
Okay.
And yeah, she grew up in Italy for the first, like in her childhood. So I'd been here quite a lot of times, so it was a natural place to go.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm just going to bring out a toast.
Oh yeah, that's the first thing we should have done, a toast.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's a really good wine.
This is a very good wine from Montefalco, so it's a Umbrian wine. And we chose it.
The best in the world, we can say.
Yes, we think so. And we also, like, Umbria is very famous for wine, olive oil, and the salumi. Okay.
Right.
And so, like, prosciutto and all these kinds of things. Yes, all the good stuff. And also, like,
all the good
cheeses.
stuff is here.
Yeah.
Yeah, wine,
Yeah.
food.
I have to say I was brought up with French red wine, like Bourgogne and stuff. So I always lean more towards that. But and stuff like Nebbiolo, sometimes it can get really, really heavy and dark. But I have to say this is really, really nice.
Good. We are very happy.
And off camera, you were mentioning that one thing that you truly love about Italy is the geography and all these aspects that combined makes Italy
True.
a great country to you.
Yeah, that's another aspect about Italy. It's, as I said before, if you had to stay in one country for the rest of your life and it was Italy, you just had to stay inside of the borders of Italy, it wouldn't be a problem because you have everything.
Yeah.
Mountains, especially Milan, like it's a good place to live. The mountains in 2 hours, Lake Como, which is one of the most beautiful places in the world, 40 minutes. The sea, how far is that from Milan? Like 2-3 hours of drive?
If you go to Liguria, it's like a couple hours max.
I would advise you to go. I've been going since I was 6 years old, and I think it's one of the most magical places you can see.
I still have to go.
Oh, you must. It's incredible.
Well, that needs to change, Sander. You need to go there.
I'm more of a mountain person. I always preferred like snow and just the fresh air in high altitudes and snowboarding.
I was about to ask, do you ski or snowboard?
Big passion of mine, snowboarding.
Oh, okay, so let's go on. You want to do one question?
And I was very curious to ask you, Sander. So you mentioned you've been around the block for a while now, 4 to 5 years. You've been running your agency. Now you teach others what you know.
Right.
And that's very remarkable because of what you've done so far. I guess I'm very curious to know, what changes have you noticed in the online and digital space, which is like most people that are viewing and watching this podcast or in the online space. I guess what changes have you noticed in this space in the past few years since you started? Yeah,
I mean, I started with dropshipping, funnily enough. That must be, 6 years ago. When I say 4 or 5 years, that's my journey with running an agency.
Okay.
Before getting into that, I did dropshipping for a little bit. Not that long, I would say just under a year. And at a certain point, it went all right. Like I was making $300 to $500 a day in revenue, of which, maybe 30% was profit. So like on a good day, like $200-300 profit at most. But at this time, I was like 15, 16, running it through a PayPal account in my dad's name and stuff.
Wow. And
so it wasn't really official. But still, for a 15, 16-year-old, like if you're making between 5, almost 10K a month, running like selling products online, that's a good money to make it that remarkable. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The problems obviously were it wasn't really official because I couldn't have a company in my own name yet. Of course. A lot of the revenue went directly into a PayPal. It was really, really complicated. But the main thing that made me just switch away from dropshipping was what I was doing. Like it hit me at a certain point. Look, I'm selling cheap, low quality products from China to customers all over the world with 3-4 week shipping durations. Like I wasn't really making anyone happy. Yeah. The revenue I got made me a little happy, gave me a little bit of freedom, but I wasn't creating value. And that's really, really uninspiring. And so, of course, there are different types of motivation. One type of motivation can come from being desperate, needing money.
Yes.
And that's hunger. And that can make you work. That can get you out of bed and get you to work for 12, 14 hours a day.
But that was not your case.
That was the case at the point. And so, but as soon as you start making a little bit of money and you get that freedom, that hunger motivation disappears, and then you need a different type of motivation.
Yeah.
And if you're not creating any value, it's going to be really, really difficult to find that sort of motivation, the good sort of motivation, unless you're a psychopath.
Yeah, I agree.
But what's your current motivation then, now that you've evolved throughout the years as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So first of all, there was a huge value change from going from dropshipping to starting an agency, because now it's actually like just the most basic thing is, are you putting smiles on people's faces or not? And so I knew most of the products I was dropshipping, even though people weren't paying a lot of money, they just weren't good quality and it was not going to bring any joy to them. As soon as I switched to running an agency and actually being passionate about delivering a good service to my clients, they got happy from the results I delivered. And so that's already a good place to start. So that was a new sort of motivation. Then today I have a different motivation, which is comes more from running the educational program and the impact I want to have on the educational system as a whole. Because let alone I didn't go to university, I also never started high school. I started high school, I didn't finish high school is what I mean.
Oh, wow.
I never finished high school and I never attended university. So I have no formal education, no diplomas. I mean, I went to normal school as a kid, but except for that, no diplomas. And so the formal educational system just didn't really work that well for me. And so I'm really, really passionate about this change, which is taking education more online, decentralizing it more, making it available, like making it possible for people to choose a certain direction they want to go in, and then making them an expert in a certain field in the matter of a couple of months. I mean, we might as well talk about marketing. I do marketing, you do marketing. I've been running a social media marketing agency. I have had so many people through my program now that have studied bachelor's at university for 3 years. Some of them have taken a master's on top of that. So they've spent 5 years studying marketing at university. And after studying the 40 modules in my course through in a week or 3 weeks, they all come to me and say, I learned more about marketing in 1 to 3 weeks studying your program than I did at 5 years at university.
Because it's more practical.
Also, it's one of those industries that evolves so quickly that you need to learn from somebody who's doing it.
Exactly.
And so, you might learn a lot of fancy models at marketing university, but they just aren't that applicable in the real world.
I can resonate with what you're saying so much, because they teach you things that don't apply to small businesses, like the business that, social media marketing agents that you can you can create with your programs. Like, they don't teach those things. They don't teach practical marketing that is applicable to those type of businesses. And so, I can resonate with what you're saying so well. Yeah. It's so true.
And I think it's important, just before anybody gets salty or skeptical about what I'm saying, I recognize the distinction there is in education, especially formal education. Studying to be a doctor or a surgeon, a neurosurgeon, anything like that, that's one thing. I hope that the person who performs surgery on me next, God forbid that happens. I hope it doesn't happen. But perhaps I'll need to have surgery made on me in the near future. I hope that person has studied at university for 5, 7, 10 years and knows exactly what he's doing.
Of course.
Because there are strict procedures for how you do that. And it doesn't change a lot. Of course, with biology and with evolution, our bodies changed and new methods of performing medical procedures are discovered. But it's changing slower than a business field like marketing, where you need to learn quickly what is up to date. And so, again, I really have respect for formal education when it comes to those more traditional fields. But when it comes to business, consulting, marketing, those type of things, it's becoming so much more relevant to study shorter, more relevant courses made by people who are actually doing what they're talking about.
Being able to do this in a very short amount of time, which is very rare in the marketplace, in a very high level as well, by delivering high quality programs. I guess besides delivering these sort of programs, I guess, what are the secrets, let's call them secrets, but in reality, maybe there are no secrets, but what are the secrets to Standard Stage's success? Yeah,
it's a good question. Obviously, as all people say, there is no secret to success. It's a very individual thing. I think one thing that always comes to my mind when I'm asked this question is, there was absolutely no alternative for me.
I remember this phrase that you said.
Right. No, there was no alternative for me. It clicked when I was first in high school. I was like, I would rather live in the back of an old Toyota with a laptop and hotspot from my phone, working on trying to build a business, even if it took 5 or 10 years, than I would be stuck in just a regular job where I was living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
Quite simple. And so I think that's my secret to success, because there was no alternative for me.
Yeah, I remember this phrase.
It's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah. And instead, we wanted to ask, your parents, were they supportive of whatever you wanted to do in your life, or did they have more strict ideas? How did they take all this?
That's a good question. I actually think it's relevant to what we just talked about, because maybe one of my other secrets to success was that I was brought up in a very, very informal way. We had none of the traditions that any of my friends had in their households. My dad was always an entrepreneur as well. He is a furniture designer, and so he started different furniture startups throughout my childhood. And I saw all the struggles and tribulations he had with trying to start up a business by his own and with some friends. And I think what that just showed me is, you don't have to take the traditional path.
Yeah.
My mother, on the other hand, is an educated psychotherapist, but hasn't been working for the past 10 years. So she didn't have a traditional career either. She has traditional education, but not a traditional career. And so I think just observing both of my parents doing things that none of my friends' parents were doing really opened my eyes up to the fact that, okay, I can go my own route. I can shape my own route.
What do they think of your success, and what do they think about you now? I think they must be really proud.
Yeah, I think my mother's better at displaying that. My dad is always holding back also because he has, started businesses himself. And so I think when he saw some of my explosive success at a certain point, he might have been skeptical or might not have believed that it could really be that much I was making, etc. But my mom is definitely very, very proud of me. At least she says so.
I'm sure she is.
Yeah, but going back to the whole parents' dilemma, were they skeptical, etc.? They absolutely were. Again, my mom didn't have a traditional career, so she didn't really have that much to tell me. She was like, just go for it. Whereas my dad was more pushing for me to just pursue traditional education because he had like a rough path with entrepreneurship throughout his whole life. And so in the back of his mind, he was probably like, I wouldn't want him to experience the same because if he fails, it's really, really tough.
Of course.
And so for the first maybe 12 months of me trying, I started making money, but not enough to buy a house, for example. And so I think he was still skeptical, even though I was making more than most adults in my country, because he knows that revenue can fluctuate throughout the months. So I definitely faced some skepticism. But I set a goal for myself when I was in high school, which is if I get to 25K a month, dollars, euro, they fluctuate right now. They've almost been the same.
I think now euro is a little bit more, but it went under a certain point.
The reason I'm switching between them is for me, it was 100,000 Danish krones. And I believe at the time it was like around $25,000. I might be a little bit off.
Okay.
But that was the goal I wanted to get to before dropping out. And so when I hit that, it was like, okay.
How much time did it take you to hit that level?
Oh, good question. Not that long, actually. I mean, I got my first client on a $5,400 deal 3 weeks after starting my agency. That's one of my punchlines because I'm proud of it. It was nice. It gave me a lot of freedom. Then I had a couple months where, I signed some more clients, but I was also struggling to hit that 20K mark. It took a while. I honestly couldn't tell you exactly how long it took, but probably between 6 to 12 months.
6 to 12 months.
Well,
that's very impressive. Yeah.
And did you have anybody to work with you at the beginning, or were you alone? Like, did you ever like work with your friends or stuff like that? And how also did your friends take your idea of like dropping out of school and starting this kind of life?
Yeah, no, I was always a very solo guy. And I would say one of my weaknesses is, I hate this word harnessing, but harnessing the abilities and capabilities of other people. Now I have quite a lot of team members because I've obviously been forced to hire people as my business has grown. But naturally, I'm much more inclined to work on my own. And so when I started up, it was all myself, all solo. Didn't collaborate with anyone, to be honest. Friends were, of course, skeptical. Some were supportive. I'll never forget in high school, I started in high school 40 minutes outside of Copenhagen. So the people I was attending class with weren't any of my old friends. They were all new friends that didn't know me very well.
Right.
So I told them, like, probably a month into this high school, like I told people, this is not really for me. I have this idea to start a social media marketing agency. And I said, I want to charge these clients like $1,500, $2,000 a month. They were like, you're not going to be able to do that. And I remember really clearly, we were walking in one of the corridors in the high school as I was having this conversation with one of my friends. And I said, just like wait and see. And probably 1 or 2 weeks after that, I went to my first meeting, walked out of the office with that $5,400 contract signed. I knew on the spot, but then I came to class the next day and I showed them the email. I was like, I told you.
Wow, that's an amazing story. Wow,
great flex.
Yes,
actually, that's very good. How do you feel money has changed, if in any way, your relationships with friends and people in general on your day-by-day life?
Yeah, I mean, people always say you're the result of the 5 people you spend the most time with or the 5 closest friends you have. I think throughout my success, I maintained almost all of my old friendships. Of course, some of the people I don't see as much anymore, but that's also mainly due to the fact that I've moved away from my main country where they live. But I was never like just cutting off my old friends as I started making money. But like the friends or the people I would recommend cutting off if you really start to success are the ones that are jealous of your success, the ones that are skeptical of it, or the ones that are pulling you down. Because like when you're an entrepreneur and you start making a lot of money, we're all going to be sort of tempted, and I don't think it's necessarily wrong. We're all going to want to share our successes and tell our friends, damn, I just signed this huge client, or I just bought this crazy watch or this beautiful car. And like when I was broke, when I had zero in my bank account, if somebody came to me and say, look, I just bought $1 million watch or €100,000 watch, or I just bought a new Porsche or Lamborghini, I'd be inspired and I'd be like, damn, can I come for a ride?
How did you do that?
Yeah. How do you do it? And can I try it? Like I would be genuinely happy for them.
Yeah.
Whereas I do see with some of my old friends, like at this point, I don't even want to tell them anymore if I got a new watch or if I did something crazy, because I just know their reaction is going to be so incredibly salty. Yeah. And those are the kind of like friends you have to cut off.
Yeah, I think it's like we talked about it a few times about the mindset, like how people react is based all on their mindset and how they see life, how they see friendship, how they see everything they have in front of them. But what I wanted to ask you is a like more technical question, like how you work with the people, like the people you work with. How do you pick them? How do you go for that process, let's say? And is how you base like your trust with these people, and also how do you inspire these people like to become the best version of themselves?
Right. Yeah, it's a good question. I've never been the most talented at hiring. And so for me, it was always very key to spend a lot of time hiring some very key people that I could then put in charge of hiring people for me. Because hiring 10, 20, 30, 40 people or hiring 2 new people every week, that would be really, really difficult for me to do by myself. Mm-hmm. And so spending a lot of time finding, for example, a really good sales director or a really good marketing director, and then allowing them to hire the people below them has been really, really key for me. And the good directors I found have either just contacted me directly through my Instagram DMs, and then we've started talking, or they've been old friends or just people I've met randomly. I've been quite lucky with that, or at least I would say it's been quite organic, the process that I've used to find those people. Okay.
And are they mostly Italian or out of Italy?
I have only one Italian working for me.
Okay.
But so it's all over the world. Spain, US, UK, Italy, Denmark. Like it's really all over the world.
How many people do work for you right now all across the companies you have?
12 right now.
12.
But not all of them are full-time.
Okay.
Probably 8 are full-time and then some are part-time. For example, my assistant, who also does the support email and monitors the community, etc. He's one of my old friends, a really, really clever guy. And he's studying right now at university in London. And I'm just paying him a monthly salary, which is really good bonus money for him, considering he only has to work like, at average, he probably works for me 1 hour a day. And I'm paying him, depending on his workload, anywhere between 1,500 and 2,000 euros a month. So as somebody who studies and you're working 1 hour a day, like to get 1,500 to 2,000 in per month, that's a pretty nice bonus.
Yeah. And also like he's studying, but he doesn't want to do what you do, or he wants to do like something different?
No, he's a super traditional academic, really intelligent guy studying biology and physics,
so completely different.
Completely different. but the good thing about him is I employ him in so many different roles at the company because he's a quick learner. So the most difficult but also valuable part about hiring people is that they can take care of processes for you. But oftentimes new processes need taken care of, and you may be the only person that knows how to do it, so you need to spend time training it. Obviously, if you just had to do it one time, it would be quicker for you to do it by yourself. Yeah. But if it's something that's going to repeat itself, your time is better invested into actually training them. And so he's really good. Like he's a queen on a chessboard, etc. I would call him a queen on a chessboard because he can move anywhere. He's super agile. Yeah. And I can say, there's a new thing I need taken care of. I can explain him in 2 minutes, and he got the concept of it. So I think it's really, really important to have a queen next to you in your business that will just understand you immediately when you need something taken care of. Yeah. That's really key.
Yeah. And also like in our agency, what we've noticed is if you hire people that like have the hunger to want to learn and live in this kind of world, let's say with this kind of mindset, instead of maybe sometimes hiring like people that already know the job, it's better because people that know the job but you want to teach them something, sometimes it's harder because they think they already know, so they won't listen to you. They're less they won't learn
agile.
It. Yeah, exactly.
They're very rigid.
So, exactly. And instead, if you get somebody that wants to learn and they have like the capability to learn very easily, sometimes it's much better, I think.
Those are the key players. Those are the best people to hire.
Yeah.
How do you keep A players in your company? Do you have a system? Do you have like what is the culture that you transfer to the people that work for you?
Yeah, I think a key factor is to make everything very personal. I mean, I jump on meetings with my whole team many times a week. And we always start the first 15 minutes of the Zoom meeting. It's just like, how has your week been? What's your energy level? Is there anything you've been struggling with? Like, we talk about those things for the first 15 minutes of a
very
meeting
interesting.
multiple times a week. So it's very, very personal. We all know each other very, very well. And soon I'm going to start doing like a lot of team trips for my team. And so obviously sometimes you're going to make a hire that doesn't fit that well into the team culture. And that could be a problem depending on how present their presence needs to be with the rest of the team. So if it's someone that needs to be on all the team meetings, etc., even though he's good at his job, you might not want to hire him, or you might want to kick him out because that's a person that's going to hear about the team trips that you're arranging or the plans that you make with your team. But if he's not a good culture fit, then it's a problem.
Yeah, it will hold you back.
So yeah, exactly. So to answer your question, hiring people, yes, because of their capabilities and their abilities, but also just depending on how good they fit into the culture of your team.
Sure.
Because if you create a brotherhood and friendships between all, they'll all be excited to jump on every meeting and they'll smile throughout the entire meeting. We crack jokes, etc.
Nah, that's so nice. That's beautiful. So you've been going viral on social media lately. Like, some videos are going very well, and we just wanted to know, like, and how this has affected the business.
Yeah, I'd say overall, and I'm sorry if this is not the answer you're gonna like, but I would say if I had to choose one platform that I could only use, like just one, it would be YouTube. But you guys, you do YouTube Shorts as well, so it's not even a bad question.
We agree.
Yeah.
Because YouTube is going to become, like, now with the recession coming, YouTube is going to become like the new TV, let's say,
Right.
because it's going to be free entertainment, so everybody's going to jump on it. So we insist on making long videos.
That's so key.
Yeah.
I mean, long format content on YouTube is the most powerful way of reaching people.
Yeah.
On TikTok, people have really, really short attention spans. And the biggest difference is somebody clicks on a YouTube video with purpose, but when they're throwing a TikTok video in the face, they didn't even intend to watch that
they're
initially.
just scrolling,
Yeah.
wasting
Right.
their time.
Yeah.
And so how distinct the benefits between YouTube and TikTok for me is, if I make a viral video on YouTube, I can instantly see that we're starting to get a lot more members into our program. And so from an educational program revenue standpoint, YouTube is really, really powerful. TikTok is powerful for making connections and growing your fan base.
Yeah.
And then maybe those people will convert further down the line. But actually now, throughout the past 6 months, also since I started with you guys, I've met a lot of interesting people that discovered me initially through TikTok. I've actually met a couple of like women. I've gotten a couple dates with girls that had
That
seen
will
my
be
TikToks.
one of the topics, but he will do the question.
That's probably the biggest advantage.
No,
overall.
so it's super powerful for just getting your face out there. I would say if you're not interested in big exposure or being recognized in public, then you shouldn't go on TikTok, because that happens quickly, and that happens much, much slower with YouTube, because it's much more niche focused and it's a much more organic and slow growth. Whereas TikTok, I mean, you guys have done the business TikToks for me, where you've split like some of my podcast clips, etc., into these more business talk TikToks. But 3-4 weeks ago, I just thought to create my own personal TikTok for fun, because I woke up with one idea to make a funny TikTok where I was commenting on the whole Loro Piana trend and all these brands.
I saw
and
it.
Yeah. And like, I literally just woke up with the idea to make that TikTok, and now it has like 600,000 views. And that was the first video I posted on that profile. Yeah. And I've gotten recognized just from making like one video on a personal TikTok profile. It's crazy how much it gets your face out there.
Yeah, but also I think another thing that me and Lorenzo had talked about that video, but just doing like also every now and again a simple video where you just, no filters, no editing, just a simple video like that. Sometimes it converts a lot.
Crazy good.
Yeah. But you have to have, I think, both, because you have to show the professional side, but you have to also show like the no filter kind of side.
Right.
That brings people to think you are a normal human being.
Absolutely.
And so that makes them relate to you more. But you also have to like show the business side. So I think what you did and what we will be doing, of course, from here on out, will be interesting because you have your personal side that will show you as a funny individual that you are, and everything else, and also like the professional side. So you have both sides. That is interesting, I think, for people to see. And another question that I wanted to ask you, how has been like a funny story that when you've been recognized around, if you have any?
Oh no, they're never really funny. It's just like, oh, I saw this TikTok, or I'm seeing you on YouTube. I've been following Instagram for a couple of years. Like a few people ask for photos, but it's quite rare, honestly. People just say, hey. Some people may be nervous, or some people may just be like really, really authentic people that just want to speak on the street for 30 seconds.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
That's great. No funny stories. I think it's all very respect, and yeah, of course, when you're in the business space and online business space, sometimes you'll see incredibly skeptical people, or people even leaving a hate comment on a YouTube video. I've been quite lucky. I haven't gotten a lot of hate, but of course, occasionally it comes around. But from the people you meet, they all tend to really have respect for you, and to pay the respect. Yeah. I've never met any negativity in public.
You, Sander, have a very transparent approach. You clearly like to show your true sides on social media, but also express and show business and share business lessons, obviously, because you're a businessman. What do you think makes you unique? What makes Sander unique in the marketplace?
Yeah, no, I think it's exactly what you just said. I mean, online education, the people who make courses nowadays, it's starting to grow. There's a lot of people making them nowadays. But if we really talk about, for example, the SMA space, people that do courses in running a social media marketing agency, there are a lot now, but we're only like 4 or 5 key players that everyone knows. And it's not because we're that much better in social media marketing than all the other gurus. I think it's because those of us who really show our personality and really let that shine through, and our individuality and our transparency, we're so much more relatable than all the people who just have a really generic Instagram page with like TikTok style content on an Instagram. Like the people who do the best have really personal looking Instagrams, pictures of their life. I post stories really, really often where I spend hours writing what my opinion is on a certain subject. And these are completely individual opinions of my own that I haven't read from anyone else. And so that makes people relate, and that makes people form a personal relationship with me, much more so than any of the other SMA guys. And so I think we're just a couple of guys in the space that really have that more personal side to things, and that's a big reason for this. What was your question exactly? I think I answered it.
No, you've answered in a very complete way, because obviously you're very personal. Like your Instagram feed is very personal. You share a lot of videos and a lot of photos about you and your day-by-day life.
I think that's the most powerful thing you can do in this space. Be individual. Let your personality shine through.
Especially in TikTok. That's the culture behind it. So that's important. One question that I've always wanted to know, who are your idols, let's say, in general, all the people that you look up to?
Yeah. I, as a business person, as an entrepreneur, I've always found it hard to look up to other entrepreneurs and other businessmen, just because that's the field I'm competing in. And so I want to be the best there. And so I find it much more easy to find idols in other industries or sports or in music, because I'm not competing with them. And so I can worship them, so to speak, or I can really appreciate what they're doing. Whereas as soon as I'm talking to another entrepreneur, I'm in competition. Like, I want to be the best. So the first people that come to mind when you ask who are my idols are some of the biggest tennis players of all time. Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic, arguably the 3 best tennis players of all time. I mean, they're all in our generation.
Usually you either have one as an idol or the other. Like Roger or Federer or Nadal.
Okay, no, but for me it's pretty simple. I mean, Roger Federer has the most beautiful game of all time. For me, Rafael Nadal is the coolest fighter of all time and the most entertaining to watch, because he never gives up. He never gets psyched. He always just stays focused until the last point, until the match is over. And Novak Djokovic, I didn't like that much previously, but I've really gained a lot of respect for him, in particular because of his political viewpoints in the last 2-3 years with all the controversies that have gone around with viruses, etc.
Yes.
And the fact that he was
stuck in Australia for...
He got stuck and he wasn't allowed to participate in all these tournaments. And some of the interviews he's done, he's really expressed some opinions that I have so much respect for. And so even though he's not my favorite player on the court, his personality is really growing on me off the court.
Okay.
The only thing I don't like when he does is when he wins a match, he looks up to God and sort of thanks him for letting him win the match. And I'm like, fair enough if you want to believe in God, but if there was a God, why would he favor you over the other player? I mean, it's like, are you the chosen one? No, come on.
No, I agree.
Are you religious, Sander?
No, I'm not religious. I'm a strong atheist. I find it very, very difficult to believe in all the tales, etc. But I definitely recognize the value in believing in God or believing, connecting yourself to certain religions. Because if you live by those rules or those recommendations put forth in the Bible or in the Quran, there's a good chance that you'll live a much better life and that you'll stay much more disciplined and perhaps even create more value for those around you. And so I have already all the respect for people that choose to go that path. I just personally find it impossible.
Me too. We just came from Thailand and we saw like some crazy things that Chinese Buddhists do. And they like put needles in their face and do parades where they throw fireworks at people. And it's like, it's crazy what people would do for religion. It's like, but it's interesting. Like, it's interesting also like to understand why people think those things. But of course, I strongly believe, like you, that it's just interesting to learn about it because it makes you understand cultures. But I don't believe that some people were favored and also in the past compared to others. In general, let's say, I strongly believe the same things you do. So,
right. Do you think that sometimes throughout your journey as an entrepreneur, do you think there's ever been a moment where you were like, I don't know how I've been able to make a click and I've been able to grow exponentially, like going from 0 to 100 in a specific moment of your career?
Look, I definitely believe in, let's call it the law of attraction or in manifesting things. But I think it's all chemical processes that goes on inside of your brain. Like, people often manifest something for themselves, see the result, and then think, okay, there must be a higher power or maybe God allowed me to do this. I'm like, yeah, I believe in manifestation. I believe in the fact that if you want to change a certain aspect of your personality, for example, you can write down 5 things or 5 ways in 5 directions in which you want your personality to move. You read them to yourself every day for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then you'll gradually start to notice you become more like that person you've written down. But it has nothing to do with God. It has nothing to do with astrology or higher powers. It's just training yourself to do certain things. And so when certain successes or milestones have been reached in my career, it's always just been a result of setting goals and then working relentlessly towards making that happen.
what are your goals for 2023?
Oh, for this year specifically, I mean, I've been living everywhere. I've been moving around. I've been experiencing a lot of things on a personal level. I've met a lot of interesting and beautiful women. I've traveled to beautiful places. I've done beautiful things, lived a really cool life. I think for this year, my goal is to fall down a little bit and to purchase my first property here in Italy. So
Really?
I'm really, really, really attracted to the countryside, having a paradise for yourself. So I want to purchase a big property full of grass with space for animals and everything, and then slowly start designing and constructing my house.
Do you know where already?
I mean, my family now resides in the Piedmont region.
Okay.
Yeah.
They came to Italy?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So they live around 2 hours from me now. Yeah. So they have a beautiful, very old-fashioned house there, and I could see myself buying a property and constructing a house nearby them, so we can reach each other easily.
Yeah, that's nice.
But in general, yeah, my overarching goal, if we're not talking business, for this year would just be getting more in touch with nature and falling down and being more based.
Wow. And is this thanks to a relationship or simply your mindset has been mellowed?
Yeah, absolutely. Simply my mindset. I mean, I used to, as a 15-year-old kid, I just wanted to live in New York. I wanted to be surrounded by skyscrapers. I wanted to live in a modern apartment with a view and floor-to-ceiling windows. As I've grown a little bit older than that, I mean, all I want is just to be by myself or be with a beautiful woman and possibly my children in the nature, construct a house, renovate it, build a tennis court, build a swimming pool, and just build that beautiful base that you know you can stay in for the rest of your life. From there, you can expand businesses, you can conquer the world, you can buy apartments in different cities if you want. But as soon as you have that beautiful home base in the countryside where you can finally find tranquility, I think life changes.
Yeah, and as places in general that you've visited, I'm very interested in this because instead we have a different kind of lifestyle where we move place every 3 months. Yeah. So we are interested to know, we always accept some advice on where to go, where you found like, also like working wise, like the most focus, because of course we go to places, but we stay there for at least 4 months so we can find focus for work. Otherwise it becomes like a constant vacation. It's not good. It's not, you don't focus at all. And so what places would you advise in general?
I'm biased here. I mean, all of the important work that I've ever done, like 100% of it has been done at home. I am not really talented at being a nomad. I've tried being in Bali for 5 weeks. I've tried renting beautiful villas in distant places. I go there and I just find myself being in a vacation and enjoyment mood. And so I'm not exaggerating when I say 100% of the important work I've ever done has been at my primary base, whether that be a boarding school room or my own apartment. That's always where the important things happen for me. It becomes a difficult subject when... let's say you slip for a week, right? You start partying a little bit for a week. That's okay if you're on vacation. But if you're at your home base and you go partying for a week or you get out of focus, that's toxic and that's dangerous for you because that's your home base. And so that should ideally be a place where you find it easy to focus. And so one of my biggest goals and things I've been working on is planning debauchery. Like if I want to go partying, if I want to go crazy stuff, plan it far ahead in time, have a location for it, have the hotels booked or the yacht booked or whatever you want, have it booked and plan it. And so it's like, okay, in 5 weeks from now, for those 5 days, I'm going to be partying and I'm going to be going out of my mind. The day...
Oh, don't worry.
So getting back to my point, I'm just going to move this away so it doesn't happen again. Really planning when you're going to be partying and when you're going to be going out of focus. Because if you start letting it slip and if you start, let's say you're at home and you've decided to focus and one day your friend says, oh, we have this great party over here. You should come. It's going to be a great deal of fun. A lot of people would argue you shouldn't say no to that opportunity because it's an opportunity to have fun. But if you've decided to enter a focused period of your life, that's what you should stick to. Because as soon as you get into the habit of spontaneously saying yes to a party when you're at your base, when you're at home, you're going to find it really, really difficult to focus at home. So it's much better to plan your debauchery and party periods ahead of time. And then when you're home, be extremely decisive with what you're doing there.
I think this, what you just said, is extremely important also like for people that are starting the business. Like for me personally, it was kind of difficult, I must say. Like we've been out of the country for a few months and coming back, I found a lot of difficulty in concentrating. Right. Let's say there's also been like Christmas and New Year's and etc. But in general, I'm starting now to start to say no. And it's not that it's difficult. Like also because if you spend a lot of time out of the country, when you come back, you have all your friends that are like, oh, you must tell me, we have to see each other, you must come to this party. And it's difficult to like learn to say no, but I realize it's so important. Right. Like what you just said is like, it's key. It's key for changing yourself from like this to like this. It's crazy. It will change completely. And also, another thing I've noticed now that you become like, say, entrepreneur, but I still have to work on a lot of things to become that. So I still don't define myself as that. Is also like...
Sorry, yeah. Keep on going.
Is also like what you speak about, like topics with your friends. Like it's very difficult to make people understand what you do.
Yeah.
And also like not talk about it, because I'm like a person that when I find something I like to speak about it. I like to speak about people. I like to like get people's feedback, and so that's difficult when you don't have lots of people around you that do that. And that's why I think like also doing these kinds of things is so beautiful, because you get to meet people that have your same passion, and it's difficult to find.
Right. And that's a super good point. I mean, when you have an individual quality, which, for example, in your case would be finding something you're passionate about and then wanting to speak and discuss that passion with people, that's a quality that not everyone possesses. And so when you have a quality that not everyone possesses, it's really easy to find resistance towards that quality, because you can't live out that quality with all the people around you. And so it's really important to never tell yourself that it's a bad quality just because you find resistance, but just keep pushing on that quality and then find the right people to share it with. Yeah,
I think for me, like we've been working always like me and Lorenzo always. And it's been he's helped me so much to grow in lots of things. So like most of the discussions that you have, usually maybe 1 year ago, I wouldn't have understood most of it. But now I find myself understanding everything and managing to like speak about it. But it's so nice to like hear also other people, what they think, like also like speaking exactly to you, to them. Because it's interesting to hear like different points of view, also like from different agencies, different kinds of online businesses. Right. And because of course we know like what works for our kind of business, but like hearing everything else is so interesting. So I'm very happy that we are all here. It was just to say this, and cheers to that. Cheers to that. Cheers.
I think just quickly touching back on the subject of being a nomad and traveling and working, I think it may be important for a lot of the people watching right now to hear that personally I found it, as I said, very, very difficult to focus and work efficiently when I'm traveling. And so for a lot of people, when they go into online business, that's one of their biggest ideals with running an online business, that they can do it from anywhere at any time. And yes, while that is theoretically the truth, what I found throughout my past 4 or 5 years running an online business now, having made millions of dollars in revenue and in profit too, I found that, as I said, 100% of the important work I've done has been from home, and I have found it much easier to perform that work under a strict discipline and under a strict routine. And so a lot of people's initial motivation may be going away from the 9 to 5. I don't think it should be going away from the 9 to 5. I think it should be going away from working 9 to 5 on something that you don't actually like doing. Because as I said, I run my own businesses now. I've been doing that for 5 years now. But most of the important work I do goes on between 9 and 5. And I've actually even found it easier to work if I have a work uniform, whether that be a suit or any type of work uniform, because I'll wake up, I'll take my shower, I'll put on the uniform, and now I'm in work mode. As long as I'm wearing this, I'm working on my business. And so that's fulfilling, because even though I might be working from 9 to 5 or from 10 to 9 in the evening, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And that's what it's more about than escaping the 9 to 5.
That's key. You say enjoying.
That's key, because our goal as humans should not be to work the least possible. We are efficient creatures. Biologically, we are programmed to do things, to create things. At the highest state of life, create value, right? We're not programmed to do nothing, and that's boring and that's depressing. So let's stop idolizing people that work 1 hour a day. Working a lot is really admirable, as long as it's something that you actually either find fulfillment in or create value with.
Right. But I think, like in general, speaking to different kinds of entrepreneurs in my little path, I've noticed that like it is the same for myself, and why I found myself so well in this kind of world straight away is the fact that we never stop working. The actual truth is that, like, we'd find myself, me and Lorenzo, maybe like at 11 o'clock at night on a bar. Just we're supposed to be enjoying the night because we've worked all day. But what are we speaking about? Business.
Right. And that is enjoying.
Yes,
that is enjoying.
It's because you speak about it in like a very like laid back kind of way, and like lots of ideas come that way because you're like relaxing. Your brain is working, but you don't even notice it, and you just speak about it, and it's like it's not forced.
Right.
You just speak about it because you like to speak about it. So I think like what difference is like from a person that does a 9 to 5 that they don't like, and people like, I'd say ourselves that do a kind of job that they are passionate about, is that you speak about it even if you're not supposed to. Let's say like you're not supposed to be speaking about it. So like most of the dinners we've done here are like, okay, so what do you do? So what did this do? Or even if we've done like an hour podcast. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and that's only doable if you enjoy the process, you focus on the process and not the results. Because if you just focus on the results, you will not enjoy the process because, you know, and that's something that you clearly know. And so what's your take on that?
No, I mean, okay, if we look at a traditional household, or if we look at like series from 30, 40 years ago, or at least at our base 30, 40 years ago, well, you'll maybe have a housewife complaining to the husband that all he cares about is work.
Yeah.
I think that complaint is justified if her husband is working, let's say, at Goldman Sachs or at a consulting firm where he's not working on building his own thing and he's not working on building value or creating value. Then I can understand the complaint, because like, why would you sacrifice your life and our family life for working for your boss? You're just working in the financial sector, or you're just consulting other businesses, maybe even in the financial sector, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's not worth sacrificing your life for. But the complaint of the wife complaining about the man, or the opposite way, spending his or her life working, isn't justified if they're working on creating value and creating something for themselves. Because if you can make that your life, that's beautiful. But just being a workaholic, working for a boss in the financial space, or in any space for that matter, that isn't very admirable.
I agree. And going back to what you were speaking about before, I think that we were both curious about, do you have like a daily routine? Do you believe in daily routines? Because we've heard of lots of people that don't believe actually in daily routines, because for some people they work, some people have to try like lots of different things. And so we wanted to know, what do you think about it, and what you've tried out? Yeah. That's interesting.
I've tried almost everything. And what I would say is routines work really, really well for me. I always envy the people that can go out drinking and get wasted and then wake up at 7 a.m. the next morning and just get to work. I envy those people because that's cool, but I could never do that. Personally, when I have to get really, really important work done, I enter a focus space for anywhere between 6 to 12 weeks with a certain project, and I cut out everything. I cut out alcohol, I cut out junk food, I cut out drugs, I cut out everything unhealthy, and I just go super, super focused for that space of time. And when you set certain goals, and when you sit down for 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 weeks and do that, you can generally and usually get the same amount of work done that most people do in 1 to 2 years, because you're so focused. Yeah. And then after that, you can go out and celebrate. You can rent a boat, or you can rent a house, or you can go see your family. You can do beautiful things. And when you go and do that, you can enjoy it fully without, working in front of your family. That's something I almost never do. When I'm with my family, I'm with my family. So routines, to answer your question, work really, really well for me. But it's not a 365-day-a-year routine. It's 6 weeks in a row or 8 weeks in a row with a certain project, very, very strict routine, and then it works incredibly well.
Right.
Let's say a monk mode.
Yeah. You monk mode for a certain period of time, and then you like to enjoy yourself, I suppose. So what do you do in your free time when you can enjoy yourself and you're out of the light of work?
Yeah, that's when I'll have absolutely no routine.
Obviously.
Yeah, so I'll do whatever I want. See my family, see my friends, go traveling, go driving, go skiing, go snowboarding. I mean, play tennis. I think for those periods, it's important to have no plans. So after a 2 or 3 month focus period, I can take a full month off And again, going back to like being decisive about when you're off, when you can party for that month, or maybe it'll just be a week or two. You'll be like, okay, now I can do whatever I want. Maybe I'll want to read books. If that's the case, that's what I'll do. Or maybe I'll want to go drinking and go crazy. If that's the impulse I have in that moment, I'm allowed to.
Interesting topic that we haven't asked anybody until now. What kinds of books do you advise in general for people who are either starting out or are at midway of their path to entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think when I was starting out, I think it's a good way you phrase the question, because different books apply to different stages. When I was starting out, I was reading traditional and basic books on marketing, stuff like Scientific Advertising by Claude C. Hopkins. That's a book that's, I believe, around 90 years old. Really, really old book, probably one of the first books published on marketing. It's quite short and it's an easy read, but you'll find a lot of points that translate into today's society very easily, because even though our culture has changed so much, a lot of human psychology and human instinct remains the same. So I found older books that talk about very, very traditional and salesy tactics, really, really efficient, because 50, 80, or even 100 years ago, they weren't skeptical about those things. They were really, really raw in their way of writing it. And so when you read it today, you read some of the things and you're like, okay, you couldn't have written that today. That wouldn't have been okay. But it's the raw form of things. And so some of those older books on marketing and sales, I found really, really valuable. I'm thinking of another book, Breakthrough Advertising, also anywhere between 50 to 100 years old. The author's first name is Eugene Schwartz. So Scientific Advertising and Breakthrough Advertising. Scientific Advertising by Claude C. Hopkins and Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz. Both old marketing books that I found incredibly valuable. Other books, if we move out of the realm of marketing, I would say in the beginning phases of running a business, before you're making enough money to live a luxury life, self-help books are pretty good for you. Like books that teach you discipline or habits or manifestation. Those books can be super, super valuable in the beginning stages of your career. I'm not sure if it's the same for everyone, but at least for me, throughout my career now and throughout my journey, the more success I've seen, the more existential crises I've had, the more I see right through those self-help books. And so when I'm reading them today, having made the millions that I've made, they don't help me that much anymore because I find it difficult to believe in those sort of things, because they are quite, I don't know. Once you've seen that it's possible, you don't need them anymore. But before you've seen it's possible, then you need to read it to make yourself believe that it's possible, because it is possible. And again, coming back to manifestation, like, oh, you've made zero so far. You've been running your business for 3 months. There are thousands, if not millions of people that prove that it's possible. I myself being one of them. It's definitely possible. We can see that on all the examples. So if you don't believe it's possible, those self-help books can be beneficial to you. Yeah. But
so in the beginning stages.
Right. But as soon as you've seen success, I'd recommend like more advanced reading, probably, because you're going to have a lot of existential crises or important questions, deep questions. And so moving over to books written by philosophers, Freud, or all those works that are more abstract, I found more value in reading later on.
And being your mother, she works in psychology parts.
Yeah.
Have you ever asked her questions, like existential questions and things like that?
No. I haven't. I said she hasn't been practicing. She hasn't been working for many years. The thing with me and my parents' relationship is it's always been we've been friends more than parent and child. I've always had a very near friendship relationship with them. Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm really appreciative of that. I think it's one of the main reasons that I've been able to go my own route, because they haven't put that authority figure on top of me, which do that. Yeah, my dad tried just for the safety of me. But again, we were having drinks together, discussing music together, even smoking weed together. I was doing all those things with my dad at 16. So we were friends more than anything. And yeah, I think those kind of things opened up my world, because I was allowed to express myself and I wasn't being oppressed by authoritarian parent figures.
That's beautiful.
Do you have any advice to people that are trying to start their online journey and have those, especially, you know, people that are watching us that are 16, 17, and they might be living with their parents at home,
Right.
that feel a bit oppressed by their parents because they want them to go to university, etc. Do you have any advice to those people?
Yeah. What I'll say is, before you ask that question, you guys have just heard my childhood. You guys have just heard how I grew up.
Exactly.
And how having an abstract or untraditional childhood allowed me to think differently and shape my path differently. If you're on the opposite side of the spectrum, which would be having very authoritarian parent figures, then you're not going to have the same belief system. You're not going to have the same beliefs or childhood as I've had. And so the only thing you could do to sort of break out of that traditional path, if you so do desire, is to listen to what my story was and then try and imagine for yourself that you had that kind of parent figure. Because our childhood shapes us so much. What our parents tell us, what we experience in our childhood, that becomes our personality. And so it's not very easy to contradict your parents. But if you really have this strong desire inside of you to do your own thing, and your parents are really authoritarian and want you to do traditional things and take the safe route, then the best thing I would say you could do is listen to a story like mine or somebody else who has had an untraditional upbringing, non-authoritarian parent figures, and then imagine for yourself that that's the childhood that you had and how you would have behaved if that was the case, and then just go that route.
Yeah, that's why you talked about when you read self-help books, you talked about belief first and then taking action. You need to believe that there is another opportunity besides what you already believe.
Yeah.
You know, there is another life that is possible.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm passionate about education. I've had 1,600 students approximately throughout my program now. And so I have a lot of experience and case studies of who succeeds and who doesn't succeed.
I have one important question.
Yeah.
What are the main personality traits that the people who succeed as your students have?
Right. The main distinction I've seen between people that don't succeed and the people that succeed is, for example, a lot of the people that don't succeed, the first question they'll ask me, I get this question less nowadays because I'm not taking my sales calls, for example, by myself. So I'm not speaking as much to the end customer or the young entrepreneur as I was before when I was taking those calls by myself. It's more my team taking care of those today. But the main thing I was hearing back then was, if the first question a young 16, 17, 18-year-old aspiring entrepreneur was asking me was, how can you charge your client $1,500 a month? How can you charge them $3,000 a month if somebody working a full-time educated job is making $2,500 a month working full-time for just one company? How is that possible? You as a 16 or 18-year-old kid with no formal education, how is that possible? Those people that had that doubt, of course, some of them overcame that doubt and that skepticism and went on to succeed. But a lot of the people that initially have that doubt, they'll never succeed because they are stuck in that traditional mindset. Whereas there's some other people, and sometimes you can explain where they have it from. Sometimes you can't explain where they have it from. It's just natural for them. They'll never ask that question because for them, the answer is so apparent. It's like, okay, if a client is giving me a $2,000 a month ad spend, they're paying me $3,000 in service fee. That means their expense with my service is $5,000 in total. But my ROI on the ads I'm running for this client is 6x. That means from $2,000 ad spend, I'm creating $12,000 in revenue for them. So that's $7,000 in profit after the ad spend and the retainer. Like, people who think that way, they succeed because they don't ask all the stupid, I'm sorry to say stupid, but they don't ask all the non-important questions. They're just like, if I can provide that, it's only fair that I get this, right? It's like, okay, if I can provide that value, of course I will have that value.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Do you think it's because of imposter syndrome or like some limited mindset that stops people from actually doing the thing they know they could do, but they don't do anything?
Yeah, absolutely. But of course, it's going to be a combination. Most of your success is going to have to do with your work ethic and your creativity. Intelligence is important for success, but it can also be detrimental to your success. What I mean by that is some of the most intelligent people will be some of the most existential or doubting people.
Overthinkers.
Overthinkers, exactly. And so having a high IQ is far, far, far from the main important point in your success.
Also because I feel like very intelligent people, they think of something a lot before they do it. I think that one of the qualities that I've noticed, I haven't had as many case studies of you, of course, actually only 8. But in my editors, let's say, that I manage, I've noticed that the people that want to take the risk, they are the best. Like, people that don't think too much of a decision are the best people, because they don't like overthink everything. I've had this problem, for example. I overthink a lot. So I've had to learn to go back, and it's one of my goals for the year, to start jumping on things more easily. Because I imagine all the possible scenarios that will happen. And so like a chess game, more or less. Just try to find other roads, but in reality, until you don't take it, you can't know what's going to happen. So that's the, I think, most important thing that I've noticed that all of you have in common.
I think risk taking is a funny one. It's an important one. I mean, I've made a lot of money now, and some people would say, "Oh, wouldn't you want to really protect that?" And yes, I want to protect that, but at the same time, I don't have one friend that wants to drive as fast as I want to when I'm driving a car. Like, if I'm driving a fast car, I want to max it out. And some of my friends are going to be like, "Oh, that's fucking dangerous." And it is. And so like
the face.
It's the true answer. They are smarter in that situation, because of course you don't want to lose your life in a car accident. That would be tragic. But I just have found with myself and a lot of the really successful people that I've talked to, we are able to distance ourselves from fear in a way that most aren't. Like, I'm not scared of going broke tomorrow. Like, if you took all my money right now and I woke up with, let's say, $100 in my bank account, I just go into animal instinct tomorrow. Like, I wouldn't be scared. I know I wouldn't make it again. Like, no doubt. I wouldn't make it up. Like, I would really make it up. Like, I'm not scared of what would happen if somebody took everything I own. I'm not scared if somebody forced me to work as a bartender for 3 years, because I knew I would become the best bartender in the world. I'd rise from bartender to manager to restaurant manager to partner in the restaurant to partnering up with the owner of the restaurant, opening up a franchise of that restaurant in some other country. Like, whatever you place me in, I'm going to give my everything to become the best in that field. And so I'm very, very distanced from all fears, whether that be speed in a car, whether that be occasionally experimenting with a drug, or whether that be going broke. Like, I can confidently say now, yes, thankfully, I'm at a point in my life where it's very, very unlikely that I ever go broke, because I have more than enough to go around. But if that was the scenario, it wouldn't faze me. I don't have that fear. So yeah, a lot of successful people are fearless.
Have you seen Undercover Billionaire? This Grant Cardone is crazy. They gave him $100 and a truck, and he had to recreate a business that was worth 1 million. And he created a content creation business, and that's why we went to see it.
What business is that?
It's like what we do. Exactly.
Content creation.
Content creation.
I heard something entirely.
Content creation. Like, and he had 3 months of time. In 3 months, it was worth 5 million. And he started from 100.
Right.
But all networking, mostly.
Once you have the skills, you don't have to fear.
Yeah, exactly. Once you have the skills, they can take everything away from you. But
which goes back to like belief and just studying and being passionate about what you do. Like, if you just study relentlessly to become the best at what you do, and you believe that you're gonna succeed with it, there's no way that you're not gonna.
Yeah.
Like. But people will be like, "Oh, I haven't signed my first client for 3 months." Well, first of all, you haven't even taken a course. You haven't even reading a book on this. And secondly, you've been doing outreach now for 3-4 weeks, but you don't even believe that you can sign a client. In your first 2 meetings, you were hesitant about saying the price of your service because you didn't believe in the value of it. I mean, in my first meeting, I was hesitant when it came to presenting the price of my service, even though I knew the value of it. But I just turned 17 and I was trying to sign a $5,400 like contract on the spot. Of course, I was a little bit hesitant, But when he finally asked me, I presented it with confidence. I was like, that's what it's going to cost. And he said, yes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, that's crazy. And how old are you now?
21, yeah.
Wow. That's a lot,
21.
lot of things you've achieved in a little time.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
But it's just the beginning.
Yeah, I imagine.
Also, what like your approach? As soon as we asked you, like, how old are you? And you said 21, and we were like, wow, that's great. You stayed stoic. Like you said, okay, I've accomplished what I've accomplished. Still, I still have a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the right approach. That's the right mindset.
What are the craziest, like, have you ever tried extreme sports and stuff like that? Like, I mean, like, I don't mean extreme, like in a, like normal people would see dangerous way, like experiences.
I haven't tried any of them. You know, it's not even because I'm scared of doing it. It's just because I know myself, once I reach a new limit of adrenaline, whether that be bungee jumping or jumping out of a plane, which I haven't done either of them, but I know as soon as I do that, that's going to be my new limit. And I don't even want to raise my adrenaline limit right now because I know I'm going to be chasing it very quickly after I've done it for the first time.
I can give you a piece of advice if you want to take it, of course. I've been doing like one of these things per year since I was 17.
Right.
And so every year I push my limits a little further. Like at 25, I have like this year. I want to jump out of the plane. And next year will be bungee jumping. So every year I've taken it a bit further. And I've found this way of, let's say, going slowly. And every year for my birthday, my parents know that that's the present I want. So a new adrenaline rush.
That's cool.
It's very interesting because I jumped out on an airplane last April. And I did it like on the spot. I was at the restaurant with a friend of mine. I was like, okay, what can we do that is going to push our adrenaline to the next level? Like we're thinking about going shooting or bungee jumping or
that's on the list.
skydiving. And we're like, okay, well, let's go skydiving. My friend was like, well, I don't know if I should do it. I was like, fuck it, let's go do it. Mm-hmm. And it was like my new level. And as soon as every time that I think, okay, there is something scary that I don't want to do, either making cold calls or like reaching out to those people, etc. I remember I did that. That was scarier.
Well, that's a good way of thinking about it. But that's a constructive way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
The toxic way of thinking about it is I want more. And I mean, the concept can be wrapped around the concept which has been coined, hedonic adaptation. I mean, the first time you drive a car, it doesn't matter if it's a Toyota, it'll still be really fun because that's your first time driving a car. You're steering this spaceship. Yeah. That's fun. As soon as you've tried a Mercedes after that with a couple of horsepower, going back to the Toyota is incredibly boring. Mm-hmm. You can drive my girlfriend used to have this, well, she still has, my ex-girlfriend, who still has a Mercedes with an AMG motor. And I used to drive that around a lot, and I found it fun because you put it in sport mode and you could actually hear the motor revving up, and that was fun. The top speed was like maybe 210 or 220 kilometers an hour, but just hearing the motor, that was super fun. Mm-hmm. The second I stepped into a Porsche or any sort of fast sports car above that level, going down is super, super boring again. That's what we call hedonic adaptation. I mean, as soon as you've tried one level, stepping back down is super, super boring. And so that's why thrill seekers and adrenaline seekers, they can become so depressed, because if you've experienced every drug or every extreme sport or every car, it's difficult to find dopamines in other things. And so it's really, really important to plan ahead and to discipline yourself and to not just go all in.
Exactly.
Sandra, I have a very controversial question for you, which is in terms of like the spread of information and how information is shared. Do you think that there is a level of censorship right now in how information is shared on the news or on social media that changes people's perspective on certain elements when it comes to life or political views, and so that dictates how they make decisions in life?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see it as a lot of people when they first get into this. I don't see it as some evil matrix where all the big TV hosts or all the big influencers are guided by the same principles or by the same Illuminati. I don't think that they're all under the same umbrella and working for the same cause. But I definitely think there's a lot of misinformation being spread. And so I think a lot of the influence that we're seeing is coming from a more subconscious level. Again, it's not one Illuminati telling all the influencers and all the TV hosts, ask these questions, say these things so we can move the narrative more in this way. I don't think that's what it is. But I do think that a lot of those people that are in charge of influencing people, whether they be TV hosts or podcast hosts or influencers, they've realized that if they play by the rules of the high level, even if they don't know those people, but if they play by their rules, they'll automatically succeed more. And to a large extent, that's the truth. If you play by the rules, if you don't say the most controversial things, but if you play by the rules of the high level, of the high society, of the narrative that enslaves the lower class and that promotes the higher class, then it's going to be easier to rise to success. And so, again, I don't think they're guided by an Illuminati or a higher society, but I think subconsciously they are. And so, yes, a lot of the information that we're hearing and reading, seeing around us is false. And I think it's really, really, really important to always maintain a certain level of skepticism when you hear people talk, even if they're the president or the minister or the biggest influencer in your city or in the world. People are influenced by the money that they're paid, by their own interests, and you'd be surprised to find out and see the extent that people are willing to go, even if it hurts people, when it benefits themselves.
Do you think there are certain things that you do in your life, in your business, etc., that that are absolutely controversial? If normal people, let's call them this way, heard about the things that you do, they will be like, "Oh my God, that's crazy."
I mean, any movement in history starts with extreme people, and any movement at the beginning is always regarded as an extreme entity. Whether we talk about the Beatles or Michael Jackson or the Rolling Stones or somebody like me who's promoting online education and less formal education, anytime there's a change, whether it be in education or in music or in art, right? Moving from realism to more abstract art, any space, there will always be extremists who move first that then go on to become non-extremists and just to become the norm. But at the beginning of any movement, anyone who starts that will always be regarded as extremists. And I think that's always really, really important to keep in mind when we see a new movement. We always need to perspectivize with history, look back at how other movements, even though they may not be in the same field or industry, were regarded as extremely extreme and then went on to become the norm. We always need to keep that in mind when anything new is happening. And so right now, for me, what I'm working on, that's online education, and that is the decentralization of formal education, formal educational institutions, and moving towards a decentralization of the educational system, a more radical approach, which is studying more specifically, at least in the business field, what you want to do. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Can I ask one thing?
Yeah, of course.
In the business field, how much do you think it's more important to create something new or get something that's already existent and recreate it, let's say, in a better way?
There are different levels of success in business. I mean, if you want to, in 5 to 10 years, start a business and sell it for $1 billion or a couple billion, you're probably better off taking a huge leap and a huge chance, creating something really radical and unique, and betting everything on the fact that that's going to work. Chances are it's not going to work, but there's a chance that it's going to work. Like the people who created Instagram, or Mark Zuckerberg creating Facebook, or just any person who has really innovated. Yeah, they've hit the jackpot, but like it's literally the jackpot. It's really, really difficult. So if you want to risk everything, family, life, wealth, success, on one thing, on hitting the jackpot, then go for it. Chances are low. If you want to lead a more normal life with substantial wealth, build a beautiful family, then you're probably better off building something on the back of philosophies, ideologies, experiences that have already been had and that have already been made. So it really depends on what your goals are.
Okay.
I have a question, Sander. Do you think that there is any ideology or any movement that is so extreme nowadays, especially Western society, that is making us people, intoxicated?
Good question. There's so many directions I could take this answer. I respect freedom of choice. I respect doing exactly what you want to do. I just think it's dangerous when we mix completely opposite sides of the spectrum and try to tell people that they are the same. One way you could perspectivize this would be with genders. I have all the respect in the world for females who decide to start their own business or decide to do entrepreneurship. But I also know the facts, which is males are more inclined to make this decision from a biological standpoint. And so again, if there is a woman who is more unique, has a more unique biology or more special capabilities and wants to do their own business, I'm all for it. But let's stop trying to tell people that men and women, for example, are the same, because biologically we're not.
What do you think about women in business? So in general, if you work with women in business already, or you've worked with women in business, what was your experience? And in general, if you admire any of the women that are currently in business?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I absolutely admire successful women, like successful business women. I absolutely admire that by all means. I just think it's really, really important to break down what success takes. What success takes in business and in life is extreme sacrifice. And that is by all means not always happiness. At most times, it's either depression or just fatigue and a really, really tough life. And biologically speaking, throughout history, men have been more inclined to lead those extreme lives, to work 80-hour weeks or just work every waking hour that they have, because they are more inclined to take that risk and to sacrifice everything. Whereas women biologically are more inclined to favor building a family and building traditional life values. And so I think Again, I admire successful businesswomen by all means. I just don't think we need to confuse it for being the ideal norm, because it's not the ideal norm. I'm working extremely hard. Yes, I've made a lot of money, but do I envy people that just lead an incredibly happy life without having to go through all that stress? Yeah, in some ways, because that's a beautiful life too. So let's stop just saying that financial success, working 80-hour weeks, is what life is about, and that is the most admirable level you can reach in life. It's not. So again, I admire businesswomen, but I don't think we need to get it. I don't think we need to get the pools sculpted or mixed up about the fact that men generally are more inclined to take that risk and to work that hard to reach those things. And so if there are those particular or individual women in between that want to go that route, by all means go for it. But if you're a woman with more traditional values that just want to build a family, want to stay at home, focusing on bringing up your children in a beautiful way while your man works, don't tell yourself you're a bad woman in today's age for that, because by all means, that is a very, very admirable thing to do as well.
I agree.
Right? That's a really, really admirable thing to do. And so I think it's crazy just looking historically at how much culture has evolved and changed in the past 3, 4, 5 decades, right? Traditional values have lasted for millions, thousands, millions of years. And in the last 3, 4, 5 decades, the movements that have been feminist movements, etc., which have created a lot of value and a lot of justified equality between men and women, it's just wild to think about how quickly that has happened.
Yeah.
And so often I think we go a little bit too extreme, and often I think that the culture moves a lot quicker than our biology evolves.
Why do you think that is the case? Why do you think we are losing values in our society nowadays?
Because we are conscious beings. You can take any animal out in nature. They don't have a conscientiousness. They don't have an awareness. They don't have. They don't reflect upon existential subjects, and that's what humans do. And so that allows for our culture to move a lot quicker than our biology evolves. And so hormonal levels and hormones are different in men and women, and that makes us more inclined to do different things. And that's natural. But with how quickly culture is evolving right now, it seems that we're trying to fight our biology.
Yeah.
It seems that we're trying to make certain things happen that just are natural to us.
Yeah.
And that could become a problem because, again, I'm all for freedom of choice. I'm all for business women. I'm all for business women chasing their dreams. If they want to make money, so be it. Go for it. But the stats remain the same. The facts remain the same. Women are less happy than they've ever been before. Women, statistically speaking, on average, were happier with the lives they led 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And so it's a touchy subject because you can't argue that things should have just stayed the same, because anything that has evolved wasn't meant to stay the same. Things are meant to evolve. But with that said, I don't think we should turn a blind eye to the fact that at certain times in evolution, we can evolve in directions that perhaps will lead to less happiness or will lead to a more chaotic society. And that's just how it is.
Yeah.
So let's stop saying that everything is perfect and that every part of evolution is just, pure happiness. It's not. There are dark times. Imagine, just look historically, like it seems our generation, the generation before us, the generation before our parents, we seem to be under this belief that the entire human history has gone on in the past 100 years. Like I hear very few friends perspectivize to how humans were 1,000 years ago. But
it's
biologically, we weren't that different 1,000 years ago. The only thing that has changed is culture. Yeah.
Yeah. And history goes in cycles. You know, there is a saying that goes by, weak men create hard times create strong men, and so on. And where do you think, what cycle do you think we are in right now? And what do you think are the 30 years ahead of us going to look like?
Yeah. Can you repeat the saying?
Yeah, of course. And so there is a, there is a saying that goes by, weak men create hard times create strong men create easy times create weak men.
And I think it's a super, super true quote, or a super true way to look at history, the historical evolution of human beings. I think we're definitely living through a time right now where we're becoming incredibly, incredibly weak. And of course, that will lead to us becoming stronger because we're going to be forced to. But again, not just culturally, but also in terms of the industrial evolution, everything that's been going on in the past 150 years, machinery, factories, our ways to develop medicines, machines. Life has become so incredibly easy for us. And most of us now, I really admire and envy the people that live in the countryside and in the most biological environments because they're less influenced by this. But any person who lives in the city nowadays, there's no way to avoid all the toxins that are in every product. Like you buy a microwaved, a food that is meant to be heated in the microwave, the packaging of that food is going to be filled with PFAS. The same PFAS is used to create the Teflon on the pans that we fry our stuff with. Everything we fry in is filled with seed oils. There's just so many toxins that we cannot avoid as people living in big civilizations. That's the biological point of view, because those are things that enter our body and make us weaker and make us more tired and less energetic. That's touchable. Those are tangible things. On top of that, we have social media, which is how we're literally getting effed up by looking at a screen. Our dopamines are so messed up, so chaotic, so in the sky. Our dopamine cycles, our ways of getting dopamines are so messed up now. So not only are we getting all these toxins in by the industry that has been developed in the past century, and again, it's everywhere, microwaved food, pans, etc. We're also getting it from what our brain produces by itself because of how easy it's become to entertain yourself. And so we always look at like Netflix series. Like some of my favorite Netflix series are like fictional series like Mad Men or The Peaky Blinders. And in both of those series, you have a main character. In Mad Men, that being Don Draper, and in The Peaky Blinders, that being the guy, I forgot his name. Anyway, Tom Shelby, exactly. So Don Draper and Tom Shelby, like these are alpha males, quote unquote, that are full of energy. They can go out and drink whiskey all night, wake up after 4 hours of sleep and perform hard work, like really hard work and build their business with a hangover. And I'm like, if I go out drinking one night, I wake up and I have no desire to work. And I keep questioning myself, like, why is that? Why is it that I can't do like they do in a Netflix series? Okay, the most apparent answer would be, well, it's literally a TV series. Of course, things are exaggerated. But if I dig one level deeper, I would say it's because those men were working jobs that required them to get out of bed at a certain time, get in the shower at a certain time, put on their suit at a certain time, and meet up at their place of work at a certain time, and they were required to perform certain tasks, right? Somebody like us, online business owners, we can wake up when we desire, we can take a shower when we desire, we can put on what clothes we desire, and we can go on TikTok and scroll and feed our brain with dopamines when we desire. And so it's really, really, really difficult to find any substantial motivation to do hard work unless you're incredibly passionate about it.
Yeah.
Like the way they were just able to tap into motivation and hard work force by sheer force and obligation, that doesn't exist in our world. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
That's why we have idols at the end of the day. You mentioned Thomas Shelby, you mentioned like other people. So we look at those people, we say, okay, I want to be like that. Well, instead of thinking, I want to be, why don't you become that person? Why don't you work on yourself to become that person?
Yeah, exactly. And I think idolizing is good. And I think seeing personality traits that you like is good and then trying to adapt to them is good. But I also think it can become very toxic when you see those characters and then you look at yourself and you're like, I don't have half the energy that they do. And then you start draining yourself, then you start killing yourself and blaming yourself for not being able to live out that perspective. And so that's when I think it's important to not just, again, think about the fact that they're TV characters, but actually to start questioning what is going on in society, how many toxins we're getting in from so many variable sources in cities, in food, in everything we consume through social media. Like biologically, our generation is messed up. Like, do you know that, I don't know the accurate figure right now, so I'm going to under-exaggerate it, but the average testosterone level of males today is, I'm just going to say 50% lower than the average testosterone level of our parents, but it's actually much more severe than that. I think it's like, yeah, it's more severe than that. I'm just not going to exaggerate it because I don't know the proof figure. That's crazy. That's crazy.
That's crazy because now males have, I'm saying in general, they have so many ways of easily getting the prey. Before there was the chase, there was like the people, the men, they used to go to the women and stay there and try to conquer the love of the person. Okay. Now it's just so easy. Like there's so many dating apps. There's so many, I don't know, I don't even know the things that there are around, but there's so much that you can get so easily that you don't have that desire to go out and chase somebody, to go out and chase a woman. And women, they feel always more like, also we look at social media and we see like levels of perfection that we will never achieve, of course. And so we're there like, okay, so this girl has this and this girl has that. And so you're always comparing yourself. Plus there's the males that they don't try to conquer you because they'll find like the easier way out. So they'll find the easier way to get what they want, if you know what I mean. And it takes a real man. It takes a real man nowadays to like pick up the courage and go after a woman and actually desire also like not only like a physical side, but also like to be with a person that you have the same values, the same ideals, the same like things in common, I'd say, exactly, because I see so many couples that have nothing in common, but they're together just because they feel lonely. Okay, so also like the thing that lots of people they don't feel whole, but they get attached to other people just because they need something and they don't find
so
it.
Exactly. So let's never underestimate the value of building something together. I think that's the most toxic part of dating, building relationships today, is that with social media, not just men but also women are trained subconsciously through scrolling on Tinder, Instagram, etc., to always think that they have a better option waiting for them somewhere out there. And that is incredibly toxic because, theoretically, throughout the 8 billion people there are on Earth, there is probably a person out there that is biologically, from a very basic standpoint, more compatible with your DNA and your emotions than your current partner. But don't strive to find that 1 in 8 billion person. Strive to build the best possible relationship and future with the person you currently have.
Yeah.
That's how we create value.
Yeah, I
don't strive
agree.
for winning the lottery, which is impossible.
Yeah.
Strive for building something valuable
and
with
also
what you
it's
have.
so much more satisfying when you like create something from zero together. Of course, I think that there must be a base, like there must be some things in common, because I've had relationships where I had nothing in common with the other person, and it's very difficult because you get to a point where you're speaking two different languages practically, and so also like in your free time you want to do different things, no? So it's beautiful when you find people that have the same interests and you can build something together, and that's, I think, irreplaceable, because what you build, it stays forever.
Sandra, do you think that pornography plays a role in how relationship changed in the past decade, especially, or last 20 years?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when it comes to desire and motivation to build and construct something in life, the most magical way to get that is from passion. Like, if you find something you're incredibly passionate about, it doesn't really matter if you're obese, unhealthy, if you don't have balance in your social life. If you find something you're incredibly passionate about, you just go that way. But that's the most magical and rare way. Let's be honest, most people haven't found, or maybe even won't find, that passion that is going to drive them throughout all their flaws. And so for the majority of people who haven't found that perfect golden passion, we need our subconscious, we need our instincts, and we need our hormones to drive us towards creation. And so that's why the society we live in today, with social media and the easily accessible porn, the junk food, just all the easily accessible dopamines out there, makes the weak man weaker. Because not only hasn't he found his passion, but now, even though he hasn't found his passion, he won't even get that hormonal motivation. He won't get that instinctual or that hunger motivation, because that he can just feed with jerking off his dick towards porn, right? So, of course, the ideal is to find that passion that will give you golden motivation through every flaw, through every hardship that you have in life. But again, for most of us, we won't find that. And so social media, the society we live in, porn, they make the weak man weaker, because not only hasn't he found his passion and his motivation through that, now he can't even find his motivation through his hormonal instincts.
I don't know
because he
who
can just
said
fulfill
that.
them so easily.
I think probably Jordan Peterson said that. I don't remember the exact words, but he said something along the lines of, a 12-year-old kid nowadays can look at more naked women just by scrolling on the internet than a king in the 15th century could look at in his entire life.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's true.
It's just crazy if you think about it.
How do you find having cultural differences between you and a woman? Do you find it empowering, or do you feel like the difference is, let's say, dividing you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, throughout the past 3 years, I've dated 2 women from Belarus, so that's Eastern Europe, very close to Russian culture. And just recently I've started dating a girl from France, which is Europe, which is where I come from. And obviously there's a big difference. I'd say when I first started dating my first girlfriend from Belarus, that was my first introduction into that sort of Eastern European Russian culture. And I found it incredibly satisfying, incredibly interesting, incredibly fascinating is the word I was looking for. Because coming from Scandinavia, which is non-arguably, one of the places in the world with the most equality of opportunity, and even outcome, women in my hometown, like, they insist to pay the bill. Like, when you're in a restaurant, like, they'll even be offended if you offer to pay it, like, because they're so extremist in pushing the feminist movement in the other way than what it has traditionally been. And so when I first started dating my first girlfriend from Belarus, it was incredibly fascinating for me to up close experience that difference in culture, which is much more traditional. Gender roles, the man paying, the woman taking care of the family. And I was incredibly fascinating, and it absolutely influenced me a lot. And still to this day has shaped my character in many ways that will carry on for the rest of my life, because again, I do see the values in traditional relationship. Again, I respect equality of opportunity. I respect women or men equally in whatever they want to carry out. But I see the importance of not neglecting traditional values. To answer your question, do I find it difficult to be with a partner of a completely different culture? For me, no, but I have an incredibly open mind. Like, I'm so open to hearing ideas from different cultures, different religions, different cultures as a whole. I'm extremely open to hearing about them and learning from them, because I recognize that we all come from different parts of the world where different philosophers have lived, different cultures and histories have reigned, and we can all learn from each other. And so to answer your question even deeper, I actually find that it can be a little bit uninspiring leading your entire life with somebody who has grown up in the same way as you, because you're not going to be challenged. You're just going to agree on everything. Your parents are going to talk well with each other. You don't have to translate everything. You don't have to learn any new cultures or learn about any new religions. And to me, that's uninspiring. But at the same time, I can respect somebody coming from a small town, small local town in a little country, finding each other and leading the rest of their life happily together. I can respect that. But for me, having seen it international world, having seen money at an abstractly high scale with my businesses, I could never settle for that. And so I can say with 100% conviction, there's no way I'm going to lead the rest of my life with a woman who has grown up in the same place as me. It's just not going to happen. I want more challenge than that.
Okay. And since you've touched the subject, how do you see in your future your life with your partner? As in, would you like her to work or take care of your children? What do you think?
This is a trendy subject in the entrepreneurial space. Do these successful men want their women to work, etc.? I think it's being talked on a too basic level, which is like, oh, I don't want my woman to work because I'm making enough money to provide for the family. It's a really primitive and basic way to talk about things. And so for me, if I was to talk about it from a more equal perspective, what I'm going to say is, I don't think an ideal relationship, an ideal life between two partners consists of both of them working full-time jobs. I think that's going to be incredibly difficult. And so if some couple out there, whether it be here or in a completely third country, decide that the woman, or find out that the woman has this talent and this passion for working and bringing money, and she wants to provide for the family, and the man wants to stay at home and take care of the children, I'm going to respect that. I just know in my case, I've realized that I'm really good at making money, and I'm really, really passionate about running a business. And so for that reason, I have a desire for my wife. I have a wish to find a wife who has the desire to find value in building a family. Because again, I don't want for both of us to be working full-time jobs. And so again, if it was the opposite side of the spectrum, I'd respect if the women wanted to bring in all of the money and the man wanted to stay at home, that's fine. I just know in my situation, my unique situation, I'm going to be the person bringing in the money. And it has nothing to do with me being a man. It simply has something to do with me believing that the balance in a relationship consists of one person working extremely hard in the industry, in the work field, and one person taking care of the family. I don't believe in both of them working, having a nanny that takes care of the family, etc. I believe that the most important and vital aspect to any childhood is experiencing love from the parents. And biologically, throughout history, we can quite clearly say that in the first 5 to 10 years of a child's life, experiencing love from the mother's side is more beneficial, and experiencing discipline and lectures from the dad's side in the next 10 years from there, so from 10 to 20, is more beneficial. I hate to say beneficial, I'm just going to say more natural. That's how it is biologically. Again, if we keep moving and if we keep on this evolution, which is the current movements, perhaps in 5,000 years or in 100,000 years from now, those roles will be reversed. And at that point, it might be more natural, and we might be more inclined to have the woman working full time and the dad bringing the kids up. But I'm a pessimist and I'm a realist, and I just look at how things are right now biologically, and I know that it's more natural for the mom to bring up the children and the dad to be a little bit distant from the children during their early years and working and making money. That's just how humans are.
Right. I wanted to ask you a question, Sander, which is not necessarily now in your career and how you live your life now, but 10 years from now, 15 years from now, let's say that you want to build a family, even sooner, I don't know. Would you give up your business or your relationship? What would you choose if you had to choose?
Why would I have to choose?
Well, I mean, is the relationship with a woman that could give you family more important than the businesses that you have, or is the career that you have and your meaning as a man that you could attach as a business more important to you?
But why wouldn't I be able to have both?
That's interesting.
No, I'm curious. Why wouldn't I be able to have both?
No, it's just a curiosity, because sometimes you know how people have the conversation. Oh well, I could either give up my position, or I could build a family. You know.
But so, in what kind of family is that? I mean, to me, it sounds like the woman is prioritizing the family, and then she's asking the man to also prioritize the family. Where would that leave the family? None of them working?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not very ideal.
But you mentioned that the woman could potentially work in the future and the man takes care of the family, right?
Look, it's very, very individual, and there's no one size fits all.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was curious to ask you this.
So let's pretend that I have a wife. We've been married for 20 years. Yes. Our children are 10 and 15 years old. I've made 100 million in my career. We have more than enough money to go around for the rest of our lives. I feel a little bit, I wouldn't say burned out, but I feel like, okay, I've achieved what I wanted to achieve and I would like a break. And my wife tells me, oh, I suddenly found a new hunger and a desire to write a book, whether it be fictional or academic. And I want to dedicate 18 months of my life to writing that book. And that, I see that you're less motivated to pursue your career right now. Then I would say, yeah, of course, I'll take care of the children for the next 1, 2, or 5 years while you write your book, right? Of course, I'll do that. But again, it's a very one-size-fits-all situation. And it's a very unique situation, sorry. And so we can't do that one-size-fits-all.
I want to ask another kind of question. Would you, for your children, would you put them in an education with an institutional education? Or would you hire a person, like an individual that comes to your house, a teacher, and teach them individually the things that you decide that you want them to learn? Right. Because once upon a time, people who studied, they used to develop much more passion because they had one person that was educating them based on their personality. So they would teach them the basis of everything, but then they would emphasize what they are actually naturally good at. Yeah, right. Inclined.
I think that's beautiful and dangerous, because it's really, really difficult and dangerous to assume what somebody's personality might be when they're 5 years old. I think that, yes, through study and analysis, we can get a good idea of what they're more inclined to be interested and talented at. But I still appreciate the freedom of choice. I mean, okay, let's look at the history of Rome. right? Marcus Aurelius was arguably the most powerful emperor in the history of Rome. He wasn't born or destined to be the emperor of Rome, but he was. He had a good predisposition, but most importantly, he was brought up with private education from the most talented and most ahead of their time philosophers and biologists, etc., of their time. And so by the time he was 15, 16, 20, he had knowledge that nobody else possessed. And that made him fit to take over the role as emperor, even though he wasn't born to be, he wasn't born in that bloodline, which would naturally make him the emperor. And so I think that's beautiful. But again, it's not something that's applicable at a mass scale.
Mm-hmm.
Like traditional education, especially the school that we attend, in my country at least, from 6 to 15, which is elementary, necessary education, I think that is inarguably a good thing. We need to learn the basics of math, the basics of our language, the basics of biology, etc. And so I think at a mass scale, that's a good thing. If you are really, really well off, incredibly rich, and perhaps even possess a really, really high IQ, which would make your offspring, your children, more likely to also have a very high IQ, then I don't think it's unfair to argue that you believe that the best future for your children would be private education administered by world leaders in their respective fields.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's a very unique thing that is going to create very unique and powerful individuals. And that's beautiful because these individuals might go on to revolutionize the world. But it's not a thing we can apply at a macro scale.
The most important things that you learn also in this kind of school, let's say, is like to be with other individuals. So that's very important also. But another thing, like with the private, it's more like you control what you're feeding your child and not like leaving it in the hands of institution. And so like you can teach them more things about, I don't know, business. Like there's lots of businessmen that teach their children when they're little, like, this is your allowance, you can spend it this way, that way. That is very beautiful because they learn since they're children how to live in the world.
Exactly. It's incredibly beautiful.
Yeah.
So, but
it has its pros and cons on both sides, I'd say.
No, I don't even think it has its pros and cons. I just think that we always need to recognize the individuality of people's opportunities, right? If you are in a position, you're well off, you have a high IQ perhaps, or just an incredibly solid family that is able to bring up children with incredibly strong moral values, and you have the funds to give them this private education that you select that is adherent to their personality traits, then that's beautiful. But again, it just isn't applicable on a macro scale.
No, of course.
But so I respect it. If some individual chooses that is the right destiny for their children, I respect that. And then some people would argue, well, who are you to choose the destiny of your child and the education which your child receives? And to that, I'll just respond, well, why shouldn't, how is the state more... how can the state decide the future of my child better than I can? You get my point?
Yeah, that was more or less...
The state education, elementary school, that's a one-size-fits-all. And so those people who would argue, like, who are you to decide the education and the future of your child? To them, I just respond, like, wouldn't it be just as bad just leaving them in the hands of the state that provides them a one-size-fits-all education? Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's...
on that topic, I think we tend to place too much importance and faith in what the state is able to provide us, because we tend to regard perhaps the state or what the education that the state provides. We tend to regard that as the perfect solution, like as a god. Like the state becomes a god. It becomes something that isn't even human. It becomes something that is all deciding. And in that process, we tend to forget that every curriculum provided by the state in elementary school, etc., in university even, is created by humans. It's not created by God.
Yeah.
It's not created by the state. No, it's created by individuals that have an influence on the state and what the state puts out there. And so again, I personally have a lot of faith in the education and the upbringing that I'm going to give my children, not because I see myself as wiser or smarter or cleverer than the state, but because I see my values in a lot of ways as more correct, not than the state's values, but than the people that form the state and the state's education and curriculum's values. Mm-hmm. The state isn't the state. The state is what the people makes it.
Yeah.
And we tend to forget that.
Yeah, totally agree. I think we have finished, the time. Did you want to do one question that was important, or?
No, I think that we covered all the topics that we wanted to cover, I guess.
Yeah.
Is there anything that...
We could go on, I think, for days, more or less. But the time we have is limited, of course. And so we thank everybody that's been listening up to now. And we hope you have enjoyed the podcast. And we thank you both for being here. And it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. I hope that something that I've said has resonated with you. I hope you don't think I'm a complete retard. I really appreciate your patience and your attention. Okay. And thank you, guys.
Thank you.